أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So alhamdulillah, this is the we continue our series on the science and art of Tajweed. And so last week we said about the adab, and we talked about the etiquettes of learning. We talked about the importance, and we talked about a brief overview of what we were going to study. And we started to study, and we also studied the fada'il, the rewards. And so one of those things, actually, to each week I want to start with something that'll motivate us. And so I mentioned a couple couplets from Imam Busayri last week, and he says also in the same burda, in the chapter about the magnificence of the Quran, he says that he talks about the miracle of the Quran. He says, دامت لدينا ففاقت كل معجزة من النبيين إذ جاءت ولم تدمي. That this is the miracle of Islam, actually, is the Quran. That دامت لدينا ففاقت كل معجزة, that this miracle stays with us and all other miracles vanish and they eventually end. So for example, we know the miracle of, say, Isa alayhi salam, that he was able to cure the blind. He was able to through the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and grant cure to the lepers. And we know the miracles of Musa alayhi salam, that, you know, how he hit the water, and how the Bani Israel were saved in the Nile River, and how the snake turned into how the stick turned into a snake, and all of those things were the miracles of Musa alayhi salam. And so each prophet had miracles, but when they left this earth, their miracles also left with them, and the miracles ended. ففاقت كل معجزة من النبيين إذ جاءت ولم تدم, except the miracle of the Quran, that it came and it remains forever. It's a perpetual miracle. And so that we see it today, that the fact that millions of people have memorized it, the fact that it's still in its perfect existence and its perfect form, and that we're learning it, and it's codified, and its beauty, and all of these things are make the Quran the miracle of the Quran. So keep these things in mind, that this is what we're studying, this is what we're learning, which is the tremendous miracle of the Quran. So last week we talked about, we started the makharij al-huruf, and we talked about the first rule of nun sakin and tanween. So that first rule was idhar, which means clarity. And so I also mentioned that everything is codified in a poem. Everything is in verse. So that the way that all the Islamic knowledges were based was that they would be codified into a poem so that people could memorize them. And those poems would serve as kind of like a beginning or like a synopsis of the whole science. So there's like a beginner's poem where the kids would memorize it, and then after that there's a more advanced poem, and then as you go, each thing becomes more and more advanced. So there's a poem that they use in Tajweed, Tuhfatul Atfal, which is like a gift for the children, is the title, and that's like one of the foundational poems for Tajweed. And so a lot of times the teacher will make you memorize that poem, and then after that there's many other ones that are more advanced. So he codifies this. He says that for nun sakin and tanween there are four rules. للنون إن تسكنوا وللتنوين, and then he says للنون إن تسكنوا وللتنوين أربع أحكام فخذ تبيني. So there's four rules of nun sakin and tanween. We mentioned there's four rules, and they're in this chart here. So the four rules. And so فالأول إظهار عند أحرف للحلق ست رتبت فالتعرف. So the first one is إظهار, which is clarity. للحلق ست رتبت فالتعرف, and so they're arranged in order from the bottom up. So pay attention to them. همز فهاء ثم عين حاء. So he starts basically from the bottom of the throat. And للحلق actually should be indicative, and it should ring a bell, because he's saying these are the letters of the throat, which we studied, the huruf al-halq. So he says hamzun faha'un thumma aynun ha'un. So starting from the bottom, it's the letter hamza and then ha, thumma aynun ha'un. So we said that the bottom of the throat is hamza and ha, the middle of the throat are what two letters? Yeah, aynun ha'un. Muhmalatani. Muhmalatan is a term the ulama describe that muhmalatan is the letters with no dots. So ayn and ha are known as muhmalatan. Yeah. So muhmalatan is referring to the ayn and the ha. So hamzun faha'un thumma aynun ha'un muhmalatani thumma ghaynun kha'un. So after the hamza and the ha and the ayn and the ha, then at the top of the throat we have ghayn, and at the very top of the throat we have kha. And you can tell gha and kha actually is a little bit higher on the throat. If you say akh versus agh, we can actually tell. So he's arranged them. للحلق ست رتبت فتعرفي. So this is the first ahkam that we did last week, which is what? Idhar. Good. So today, inshallah, we're going to start idgham. We're going to do idgham. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to go do some makharij later in the second half. So we're going to actually start with idgham just because I'm already in the poem. So he then says, وَثَانِ إِدْغَامٌ سِتَّةُ والثاني إدغام ستة أتت في يرملون عندهم قد ثبتت. So he said that also everything has a lot of times they have these mnemonic devices which you can use to memorize the letters. So in the last one they didn't actually have one. In Idgham they didn't have one. That was hamzun faha'un thumma aynun ha'un muhmalatani thumma ghaynun kha. So it's kind of easy. Hamza ha, ayn ha, ghayn kha. So they didn't really find the need to come up with some sort of mnemonic. However, for everything else that we'll do, there'll be some sort of device which will allow you to memorize it. So he says that وَثَانِ إِدْغَامٌ سِتَّةٍ أَتَتْ. So the second is idgham. And we said idgham is, what does it mean? Assimilation. So the second is assimilation, and it comes in 6 letters. So the first one was 6 letters, and the second one is also 6 letters. في يرملون عندهم قد ثبتت. So it's agreed upon that these 6 letters are found in yarmalun. So what's yarmalun? Ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, nun. Those are the 6 letters. Okay? So it's kind of hard to remember ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, nun. So they just came up with yarmalun. Yarmalun. It's very easy. Yarmalun. So now, what do we do with idgham? If we look at this, we see that, yeah. So he then goes on. He says, لَكِنَّهَا قِسْمَانِ, that there's 2 types of idgham. So if we look at the chart, we'll see that there's 2 types of idgham. قِسْمٌ يُدْغَمَ فِيهِ بِغُنَّةٍ بِيَنْمُو عُلِمًا. So لَكِنَّهَا قِسْمَانِ قِسْمٌ يُدْغَمَ فِيهِ بِغُنَّةٍ يَنْمُو عُلِمًا. So there's 2 types. The first type is the idgham with ghunna. Okay? So if we look, we see that there's 2 types. One is I've written with ghunna, bil ghunna, and one is bila ghunna, without ghunna. So what is ghunna first of all? Ghunna is the 2-beat nasal sound. Ghunna is the 2-beat nasal sound. So for example, we have yanmu. Yanmu are the 4 letters which have a ghunna. So a basic example here would be okay. So what do we have here? What do we have here? Yeah. Okay, good. So we have a noon sakin, right? Followed by the letter waw. Okay? So this is going to be one of the letters. First of all, it's going to be one of the letters of idgham.